Hey, what's up guys? Brandon here, Legacy Group Real Estate Team. We have your Insider's Report this month for April, and we want to talk about just that macro level 30,000 foot view, what's going on with the economy, and just kind of touch on a few things, like Syria, what's going on there, geopolitical things. A lot of people, they try to put their head in the sand, or they just have their head in the sand, or whatever it is, and it sounds harsh, but truly everything that goes on around the world now is we're so global that it affects what's going on here. It affects the dollar. It affects us printing money, inflation. It's the stealth tax, which is stealing your wealth. A lot of people, a lot of you have seen me talk on here a lot, and a lot of people will come question me. They'll either say one or two things. They'll say, Brandon, hey, thank you so much for giving us this information, or they'll say, how is that possible? Food prices are this, they look the same to me. These things like. But the problem is, when you actually dive into it and you actually see what's going on, think about the size of that cereal box, or the size of that chip bag, or whatever it may be. Think about the size it is now compared to what it was 15, 20 years ago. And think about how much is actually in that bag compared to 15 or 20 years ago. You might be paying the same price a lot of times, but the value, what you're getting out of it, and the quantity is way less. So, go measure those. I'm sure I haven't even searched it actually, but you should go search. If you don't believe me, go search online. I bet you can Google pictures of 20 years ago to now, etc. And they call this stealth tax for a reason, inflation, and that's a lot of what's going on right now, and that's a lot of what's going to come. And we have exported a lot of our currency, and what that means is we buy a lot of things, like in China, and we send our dollars, our currency, over there. And it's sitting, a lot of our currency, we haven't seen true inflation like you might think of it, because a lot of that currency is sitting out somewhere in another country. We've exported it, they call it. So it's sitting out there, and when, as they say, the chickens come home to roost, and something happens where all of a sudden people don't trust the dollar as much, or people want to, stick it to the US, or whatever it may be, a war happens, whatever happens, those dollars eventually are going to come back home. They're eventually going to come home to roost. And when you have the currency we have in circulation here, and then you've got all that currency, which is a ton of currency. I can't remember the exact stat, but it's a lot of our currency, like an unbelievable chunk of our currency is sitting on bank sheets out in other places in the world. And when that comes back home with what we already have here, that's when you're going to see true what you think of hyperinflation. So again, this is, we're going to talk briefly here about gold and silver, mainly silver, because silver is so undervalued. I was just having this talk the other day with a couple people. I talked to my parents about it. I've talked to my wife about it. I've talked to a few people about it. Because every couple of weeks, topics come up, and it's not like we talk about these things every day, but they come up every once in a while, maybe once a month, and it's right about the time we're doing our insider reports that we do every month for all of you guys, and for all of our fans and clients and everyone watching this show. So I try to make it simple, and there's 4 asset classes, and actually I'll write them down. There's 4 asset classes. You've got business, real estate, paper, which is stocks, bonds, mutual funds, IRAs, 401ks, that type of stuff. And then we've got commodities. So business is buying and selling businesses. So if you own a car wash, you've got a doctor's office, you own whatever, you've got some type of business, you own a business. Real estate is rental properties. It's buying and selling homes and real estate and land. That's real estate. Paper is, and again, that's homes you own as well, because everything's affected. Everything, real estate's all together. And then paper, like I said, is stocks, bonds, mutual funds, IRAs, 401ks, pensions, all that stuff. And then commodities are gold, silver, rice, grain, corn, wheat, and oil. Those are all commodities. So I try to keep things really simple, and people get into the technical analysis. They get into this and that, and they get into, we're going to do puts and calls and options, and they get into all this fancy jargon, and that's great. You can do that, but a lot of that stuff is all based in the paper asset. You're talking about stock investing then. You're doing things when I'm making money when the market's going up, and yada, 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 yada. And that's great. People do it. It's not something I like doing, because I'm not the smartest person in the world, and I understand a good chunk of it, but I don't understand enough to, try to be Warren Buffett. And, I try to make things easy. And I know for most of you, you want things easier too, right? We're trying to make things easier, not harder. So, what happens a lot of times is you have the market goes up and it goes down. But when the market's going up and down, we're really, what are we all talking about? We're talking about the Dow. We're talking about the stock market. We're talking about paper. Because that's what everyone kind of lives off of day to day and knows, and most people invest in, they have to, with a 401k or whatever it is. So we think of it that, but think about what happens. What do we know? Take a step back. What do we know about investing? What are we told always? Buy low and sell high, right? I mean, that's Warren Buffett, right? Buy when everyone doesn't. So when people are running out of the burning building, the fireman's running into the burning building. The investor is running into the burning building. That's what truly makes money in how people make money. You see some of the biggest people in the world. One of my biggest mentors, Robert Kiyosaki. So many people. I know people locally. I know people nationally. I don't know people, but I follow them, and they've all done the same thing. They made the most amount of money ever was in a crash. And it's because the opportunity is so great. They're buying things in a fire sale. They're buying bargains. When people, are all running from everything, they're going into it and they're buying things up. A lot of us, we'll go and cut a bunch of coupons and try to go bargain shopping at the grocery store, but we don't go bargain shopping at the stock market, and we don't go bargain shopping at the tax sale, at the real estate, office. So, that's, again, it's not for everybody. If you don't care about trying to get ahead or making money or whatever it is, or getting out of the rat race and being financially independent, then great. This isn't for you. So this, again, buy when everyone doesn't. And Warren Buffett talks about this a lot. One of the greatest investors ever to live talks about this all the time. All the time. He always talks about it. When people are greedy, that's when you should be buying. And when people aren't greedy, when people are greedy, you should be scared. And when other people are scared, you should be greedy. So that is really kind of the premise of all this. And this is why it's so important to keep things simple. Because people, again, like I said, when the market goes up, the stock market goes up, generally these two things are a lot of times together. This sometimes kind of gets wrangled in with it. So we'll kind of put a little circle over here, its own circle, but you can kind of see these two things are together. And a lot of times this is opposites, kind of the inverse, commodities. So you have these two things go up and they're pretty closely related. Business does kind of do its own thing. Business is kind of the abstract thing where it could be really up, it could be down. It just depends. It depends on kind of the health of the business, etc. Real estate a lot of times is tied into how well or how poorly the market is doing. But also there's a caveat, which I should probably do its own as well, because when you're talking about investment property, if you have an apartment complex or you have something like that, that's truly, and you're not basing it off the market now, you're basing it off of income. You're basing it off of what the income that's being produced from that asset is, then it's kind of its own thing as well. So these two things, depending on how well the business is doing, they can be their own entity and they can kind of be in their own market, their own scale. But a lot of times, like the retail housing market, it's all looped into the paper market. So a lot of times when you see the Dow really up, like right now you see the Dow really up, you saw it up in 08 and then it crashed. So same with real estate, it was up in 08 and then it crashed. You see those things up right now and we don't know where it's going, right? So, no, I mean, obviously it's going to go down at some point. It's going to crash. It's going to correct. It has to. It's just nature. It's just life. It's life. But my point is I want to keep things simple, very simple. And right now, while we talk about the commitment of traders, this is, if you really want to learn about gold and silver and things like that, things that are undervalued, you go to the things of the commitment of traders. Go to stockcharts.com. Go to the commitment traders. Find out what's going on. Start reading the stocks, the charts. Start analyzing them. And these things are inverse, like I said. So when something is going down, like right now, gold and silver are going down, you have, and it goes like this. And then you got the opposite going over here. So you've got stocks right now we're right here with the Dow, right? Dow right now. And then we've got down here, we have gold and silver. We got gold. So that's down. Where do you want to be when, if you jump in now, you can't do much. And where does it have to go? It really has to go down, right? So it really is, there's nowhere to go. So things can't go forever, and they never do, and they never will. So what the smart money does is they're in things like this. They're in oil, which is low right now, comparably considering where we've been the last 10 years. Rice, grain, silver. Silver is the most undervalued thing. So silver is and again, we'll put the Dow. This is a Dow, 401k, IRA, stuff like that. That's all really overvalued right now. And when the market crashed in 2008, we were at 14,000 and change. We were breaking records then. Now we're at 24, 25,000. We're almost double. We're 4 times up, and then it crashed. Went from 14 down to 6. We're 4 times what it was when it crashed in 2008, 2009. So just, think about it. It's the whole point. I just want people to think about it. So what the smart money does, and this is why I love gold and silver, this is why I love commodities, because it's opposite. So when you're down here, what are you doing? You're biding your time, you're waiting, you're kind of watching the market, studying, and then you ride this up. Because when this falls, people start jumping out. They start jumping out of these things, and what do they jump into? These are the 4 asset classes. So what are they jumping out of? Because these 2 things are crashing. Most people aren't getting into this because they don't want to. It's something they're not taught in school. Most people don't know about it. So business is kind of, not an option in essence. So you have these 3 things. What do people do? They always jump into gold and silver. They always jump into things of actual value. Our currency, our money is a currency truly, and it's backed or was backed by gold and silver. And that it always was backed by gold and silver because gold and silver is true money. The paper, a dollar, is just a claim check. It's just like you go to the dry cleaner and you say, hey, here's my shirt. And they give you a piece of paper, a claim check, and they say, okay, cool, come, this is your claim check. When you come back, when it's done, come give us a claim check and we'll know that, hey, this is your shirt. Same thing with currency. You put your gold and silver in the vault, and then they would give you a dollar or a claim check, and they say, okay, cool, this is your piece of paper. And they did it back in the day. It started back thousands of years ago because people were getting mugged in the Middle East and in the Mediterranean. They were getting mugged. And so what they would do, instead of holding their gold and silver when they were traveling, they would put it with the government or the vault or whatever where they were, and they would take claim checks. They would take pieces of paper with them and IOUs. And they would carry those around. That way, if they got mugged, it was like, okay, that's fine. So what the government started doing is when they realized that, cool, we've got all this money sitting around, this true money, gold and silver, they started debasing it, and they started, melting it all down. They started putting copper into it and nickel, all these different elements. So they created more of it. Or as we know, inflation, they started creating more of it. And then when you have a bank run, you have people trying to come back all at the same time with their claim check saying, hey, I want my gold, I want my silver. And then the government's like, oh crap, like we gave out 10,000 pieces, but we only got 5,000 pieces. So sorry. That's when you start having defaults and bankruptcies and companies going under. That's what we see. And that's like just kind of the life cycle of the economy. So again, that's kind of a whole nother talk for a different day. I wanted to keep it somewhat basic and just talk about again, buying when everyone doesn't. And right now, silver, just watching some videos with some of the silver guys that I follow, Mike Maloney and David Morgan, who are awesome, awesome guys. And they were talking about silver and just the direction it's going. And it's been down for a long time. We know they've suppressed it. They've suppressed it for a long time. We literally have conversations between banks and people suppressing the price and them laughing about it, like text conversations and emails back and forth. So we know what's going on. It's artificially lower than it should be. And we know that for a fact. We have the literal evidence of it. I could probably find the article and post it somewhere. It's somewhere on Mike Maloney's Gold Silver site. It's on the internet too, so you can find it. I'm sure you can just Google it and find it. And so we know they're suppressing the price, and we know it's basically coming into a channel. Like when you do technical analysis, when you have stock, price, things doing that, you have different channels going on. And right now, it's actually going opposite. It's going this way. It's been going like that for a long time. Just the technical analysis, you can see it in the commitment of traders. And again, I don't want to get too crazy with this, but you see, they call them channels, and it has to do with past trading and things like that. And what it's happening is it's constricting and kind of just like a spring. It's kind of coiling up, and once it has all the energy down there, it's got to go somewhere. So they think there's going to be a big breakout in silver. And again, eventually there will be. I don't know if it's going to be soon. They don't know either. I mean, it's going to be sooner rather than later. My whole point is, I like silver and gold. I like silver because it's undervalued. I like being in those undervalued asset classes. I like being in the things that I don't have to be incredibly smart about. I just know, like, hey, if I'm in this asset class, I know just by mistake I could probably be doing well. And that's where it's, it's not foolproof, because again, this is probably one of the easiest asset classes to be in, gold and silver, because it really doesn't take a ton of intelligence. These asset classes take more intelligence. So, again, riding this wave up, when everyone starts jumping out of this, when the market starts crashing, these go up. So then you're riding this up. And then what happens when this gets to a bottom, that drops 50% or whatever, and this has massive gains? What is the smart money doing? Well, they're jumping off and they're jumping into this trough right here. So they're jumping out of this peak into that trough. And that cycle just continues and just continues. So it keeps doing this the entire time. And smart money is always jumping off this point right here. And they're always jumping into that low class. So they're always jumping out of there, and they're always jumping into this here. Always selling here, and they're selling to all the people. When you start hearing stuff from the news, in the radio, that's when you know it's too late, right? And then that's when most people are coming rushing in the door, and they're blowing the top off, as they say, and they're blowing the price up. And who's selling at that point? It's the smart money who's selling at that point, and they're selling to all those people who are rushing in the door at the last second. People rush in, and then all those smart money is selling. They drop down, they're buying that next asset class, whether it's real estate now, that's super low, or it's paper, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. They're taking that, and then they're going to ride that up. Do the same thing over and over again. They're going to ride this all the way up. People sell off. Gold and silver, rice, grain, oil crash again, and they ride, real estate and paper all the way up. And when that starts getting overvalued again in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it may be, then they do the same thing. They jump down into the low asset class. They jump, and it just keeps going, guys. It's called wealth cycles. Mike Maloney had an awesome site. He used to. I don't believe he has it anymore. I can't find it anywhere in the last year or two. But it's called wealthcycles.com, and it was just all about channel investing in finding the undervalued assets. So I hope that helps, guys. It's again, silver sentiment way down right now. Silver volume, the volume is up since 03. So this is where I was. The volume, again, don't want to get confusing, but the volume's way up. It's been up the entire time since 03, and that's really when the last big correction is. And again, different story for a different day. But David Morgan and Mike Maloney are awesome. I would highly suggest you follow them. It's just, gold and silver, they're currency insurance. They're your insurance for your money. And it's the four asset classes. And knowing the four asset classes and how it works and how they interchange with each other is what's super important. And this is something that obviously I'm super passionate about. I know it's the most exhilarating thing in the world. But it's just something I'm super passionate about. It affects every single one of us. And if I can help one person, then that's all I truly care about, because it's just a passion of mine. And I hope that I can help one of you, or many of you, or all of you. So, if you know anyone that likes this stuff or has been talking about this stuff, please share it with them. Tag them in this. Put it in their private message, whatever. And I appreciate all of your time and energy you guys spend watching this, commenting, sending me messages. It really means a lot to me. And it humbles me to have your attention. So I appreciate that more than you know. And we love bringing this to you guys. It's something that, I can't say I'm going out of my way to do it, because I love doing it. And this stuff, as I said before, my wife Jessica is always, like, what are you studying over there? What are you doing? And I love looking at the stuff and studying it and trying to better myself. So again, if I can impart some of that on you guys and help you out, then mission accomplished. So I appreciate you guys and your time more than anything, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.